you know what? I love announcing who our next one is. So everybody has seen Jess helping out with it. Well, guess what? I have the pleasure of introducing our next two, because if you haven't met her yet, you will now. And she's been part of Optimize Your AWS Fest since the beginning. She's a co-founder and organizer of this event, a senior global campaigns manager at N2WS. She's been around cloud marketing for the last 7 years. And prior to that, over a decade working in architectural sciences, or actual sciences, living and breathing cost optimization. And Jess enjoys spicy foods, lifting heavy things. Oh, I love that. Cold and snowy mountains. Jess, you're not in an area for cold and snowy mountains, though. I don't think so.
I'm not. I think it's one of the most humid, hot places on the planet.
Also, Saif Kabishi is a technical support engineer at N2WS with 10 years plus experience of delivering the most cost-effective and efficient optimization solutions for cloud customers. And he goes by the saying, what's hard is done immediately, and what's impossible takes a bit longer. If Saif is not reading a book, he's actually hiking, mountain biking, and climbing with his family. Their topic today is the top 3 simple but best practices to minimize your cloud waste. Please welcome Jess and Saif. And I want to see some high fives, thumbs up, everything for these two, because Jess is behind the scenes most of the time doing so much work and helping it out from N2WS. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
I want to start off a bit, a bit before, maybe let's say 15 years ago. And we had this first migration where a lot of companies were rushing to cloud. It was a very, very fast migration. A lot of companies were seeing how easy it was to improve their user experience, to improve security. So the advantages were very, very clear. But when it came to maintaining these environments, it kind of fell by the wayside. We had efficiency and cost effectiveness sold to us with the cloud, but in the end, it didn't really happen. And as you can see from these kind of scary stats on the slide, costs are really hurting companies now. So you can see that over 30% of resources are considered waste. It's not reconciling with our ROI, and we have a good amount of resources that aren't even ever used. So if we go on to the next slide, and again, this was covered a lot during the session today, but I'll just review, kind of the main culprits of cloud waste. So we're looking at idle resources. There's a lack of cost transparency. We are seeing a lot of companies that are just kind of throwing resources at the problem, so they want to ensure performance and reliability, and they're running with these resources for way too long. And also we're seeing there's a lot of complexity and moving parts, because there's this inability to keep track of provisioned resources, especially as we move to a multi-cloud, a new phase of multi-cloud. So in the next slide, we have good news, and I think what's happening is that we're entering this new phase of migration. So the second phase is a bit slower. It's a bit more strategic. Companies are doing a lot more research, and we have resources. So we have, great tools, native tools, third-party tools. And I do want to take this opportunity to plug AWS Fest, because, this was the reason why we started the event, in 2020. It was about 3 years ago. And I know a lot of you on the session now have been with us throughout the years. And we were starting to see that awareness. People wanted to save on that huge bill at the end of the month. And in addition, we had Andy Jassy speak out even recently that due to recent inflationary pressure, companies are more than ever looking to cut costs. So we're going to see IT budgets continue to shrink, and that's why we're here. So I really want to thank all the amazing speakers in the last 3 years. I want to thank all of you who have been here with us, and John, Geety, Ezra, Megan, everyone who's made it happen. So thank you. Okay, and the last thing I want to mention in the next slide. So this is really, really important, and it's a huge culprit, and it's a huge challenge, because, again, being aware of the problem is great, and knowing the causes is great, but taking action is only just part of it, and it's really just the beginning. So what's the big challenge? It's to prevent future costs. And when there's this lack of awareness within the organization and there's this lack of incentive, that's really hard, and it has to be addressed. And the problem is, how do you do that? How do you get your employees to want to be involved in FinOps and prioritize savings? Because they can just say, you know what, we have budget cuts again and we can't deploy that. So first of all, come with data. Bring current spend reports. Bring those lists of resources that aren't tagged. And then ask, do we need this? What is this? Ask who the owner is. So the key is really to constantly develop those KPIs and then call out the ones who have succeeded in saving X amount of dollars, who have identified idle instances, who have resized, right-sized, implemented graviton processors, for example, and do this consistently. Do this every quarter, every month, and focus on one KPI, keep it simple. And hackathons are fun, gift cards are fun, and hopefully you can get everyone involved. And we actually had a very interesting poll where it showed that, engineers very rarely are involved in cost savings. So again, a great way to build that culture. Okay, and now I'm going to pass it on to Saif, and he'll talk about the easiest cloud waste tools.
Thank you, Jessica. If there's no tags, there's no instance. Tags are for transparency and documentation. It's a basic need for every organization. And untagged resources generate costs that must be reconciled only later. Require that all resources should be tagged. Stop instances that are not tagged. Imagine that the instance that has no name and no purpose. It should be stopped. User-defined tagging can help teams map cloud costs directly into application and according to some characters and particular features like products, teams, or even individuals. This way, those who are responsible for creating a particular resource are also accountable for right-sizing them when they are over-provisioned, or turn them off when they are not used. Strictly follow global tagging policies so that it's easy to identify resources. And this will create some kind of consistency in the allocation of the resources across layers and regions. For example, if you adopt a standard naming convention for resources, then it becomes simple to identify resources and to which group they belong and recognize them in case of a need. You need to tag your resource in such a way that you are always looking to optimize your costs. By categorizing the resources, you can make sure that they are visible and readily available for reporting. Control who can provision resources, require roles and permissions. In AWS, you can set up IAM roles to control access to resources. If you feel someone is over permissioned, use IAM Access Advisor. It uses data analysis to help you set up permissions guardrails confidently. Access Advisor can help you control which services your developers and application can access. Want to know some of your colleagues are using the proper credentials and roles or not? Use credential reports. It helps you meet security, auditing, and compliance requirements of your organization. It provides a list of users in your AWS accounts, and it show the status of their credentials. Identity-based policies are JSON permission policies documents that can be attached to an IAM role, a user, or a group of users. These policies control what actions users can and roles can perform on which resources and under which conditions. And identify and terminate idle resources. One practice, if you are not using N2WS, which is unfortunate, of course, you can use AWS Trusted Advisor that recommends you how to follow AWS best practice. It evaluates your account with some tests to identify ways to optimize your AWS infrastructure security, performance, and reduce cost. And AWS Instance Scheduler, which is based on a schedule that you set up. With a tiny limitation, it has no run ASAP option. It also needs to be permissioned in the console, which usually QA and dev team don't have. And it's a little bit not very accessible as a light switch. Same here, dev team don't have access to AWS account to power on and off resources. If you want people to turn off the light, the switch must be accessible. So let dev team have access to power on and power off environments, even outside of the schedule. Easy accessible by managed user, a user that has least permissions in N2WS. N2WS Resource Control Group lets you set a schedule over your work week, when to turn off resources and when to turn them on. Once the schedule is set up, you can instantly see how much you are saving per schedule. Each schedule gonna displays how much saving by setting this schedule and these resources. And guess what? You can also remove the target resource after it's being turned off. Think how easy your team can operate. Once everything is done, all the tasks are completed, the resources are turned off, and they are terminated in AWS. A case study that for one of our clients, Gett, it's an international company. They had more than 80 EC2 instances and about 20 RDS. They had difficult times to keep control of how many accounts and resources in the cloud. They had difficult time to they used AWS Lambda functions to trigger backups. Then they lost track matching snapshots and to users and to versions. Terabytes were piling up with no idea what is safe to be deleted. Once they have discovered NTWS through APN, restoring single files became easy and available. No need to restore the whole instance just for one file. And using NTWS efficient backup procedures saved them over 50% a year. NTWS also helped them to identify unprotected resources that are sitting there and no backup for them. Moreover, Gett started using NTWS Resource Control Group to stop their large EC2 instances at night and over weekends, which saved them about 50%. It's about $2,000 per instance each month. And I'm going to show you a small demo using N2WS. So here I have two large instances I have set up. Both are set up for the AWS Fest. One ends with on and off. We're gonna see it. We're gonna add it to our resource control group. And this is one for task scan. And we can see here that it has only the name as tags, as a tag. Let's go to my NTWS. Here I have also prepared a resource control group. Choose an operation to turn off and on. We also have turn off option, and when it's turned off, you can also remove the target with yes, no, and you can get alerts for that. The schedule, I have set my schedule to turn on the resources each day at 8 a.m. and turn them off at 6 p.m. when all is done. And here we can add the operation target, which targets we want to turn off and turn on. Let's add one, and I'm going to add this one, on and off, selected, close, and save. And here we already see how much we are saving. $168. Now let's try one more thing, and it's related to tag. So I'm gonna go back to AWS. Here, this is the tag scan instance, manage tags. I'm gonna add a tag, and I'm gonna add the policy name and save. Okay, so now we have a different tag. It's okay. And let's go to general settings, tag scan. Here, my tag scan is set to run every 6 hours. For the demonstration, I'm gonna scan now. Yes, perform tag scan. And here is our new instance tag scan. Sorry, I had a mistake. And now you can see that it's already added, and the cost saving for these two instances is about 336 bucks. One more thing I want to show you, that you can see all of the cost savings in the dashboard here. This is for all the schedules that I have set up.
All right. So let me ask you a couple of questions. Here's one directly from the chat. Hi, Saif. Thank you. Can you suggest the minimum viable, most critical tags from the cost governance and control optimization perspective?
Well, the minimum, you can add tags as many as you want. It's there's no limitation. Yeah.
All right. So the only limitation are the number of tags that you can add for services or resources. It's typically up to 50, and not all resources support tagging. So make sure that your resources do it. There's always that discussion that is this tagging really valid? It depends the account, but in this case, it's for your backup. So you're allocating tags and backups based off of them. Saif, what AWS resources can be added to the resource control group?
Well, it's a good question. Basically, the most expensive resources, which is EC2 instances and RDS.
All right. And so really, what's the benefit of the resource control group, if I'm already scheduling the start and stop of my instances within AWS?
Well, I have mentioned a little briefly later on my presentation. Native AWS features are not very accessible to dev team and QA. Any user from the company can go and stop and start these instances using a simple user that can turn them off, turn them on, even outside of the schedule.
All right, save the last question before we bring everybody back on for our for our closing remarks. In fact, stay tuned because Richard's going to be joining us. Actually, Richard, you can come on. I'm going to ask Saif the last question. I'm going to do my closing remarks. You can do yours. Saif, you can stay on the entire time. After that, we're going to do our final magic and raffle. So Saif, our last question for you is, can I try N2WS resource control feature?
Yes, you can. You have a trial and it's a fully featured version for 30 days. And after that, it turns into a free version. And of course, our sales team will be happy to call you and help you tailor whatever your needs are.
Nice. Saif, thank you so much for the great presentation and the demo. Jessica, thank you. I really appreciate it. High five, thumbs up, and lots of love for your, putting this on. I know it is our last session.